welcome to another edition, episode number 39 of the Lab Epstein podcast. Jim here alongside my friend, co-host, former coach, professional evaluator, successful business owner, and a man who has no trouble throwing out runners in his days as catcher because of the length of his trunk. I came up with that one on Wednesday. Jake Epstein. Mr. App, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I could throw.
Yeah,
that was the only thing I could do when I was younger. I could throw.
It's a scouting term, as you know. For the audience that doesn't know, the catcher has a longer trunk. They have an easier time throwing runners out. Speaking of scouting, well, we'll get to that in a second, though. I think the first thing we have to talk about is the passing of Hank Aaron. And, I mean, you kind of, I don't want to date you here. I don't think you grew up watching him. Maybe you did. He was towards the tail end of maybe his career when you started watching, but I didn't get it. It was kind of, my dad watched him growing up. I didn't get a chance to watch him, obviously, growing up, but certainly a great ambassador for the game of baseball. And he passed away last week, along with Larry King, too. So, rough week in, what was it, the third week of January for some legends passing away. But Hank Aaron passed away, unfortunately, and he will be missed, and the impact that he had on the game of baseball, certainly. And I'm sure that your father is quite upset, and to see the passing of a legend, a guy who he had a chance to watch up close and personal.
Yeah, I never saw him play.
Mm-hmm.
Except on video. It looks like his last year was like mid 70s, 70, 75 or so, 76.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was in a different league than my dad. Except the very, very end. And then my dad was out of baseball by then. So I don't think they ever truly played it. The only time would have been in spring training.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad, telling me that, but they didn't know each other well. But my dad said he made things look really easy.
He did.
The bat, and it was huge that he used, but it looked like it was a pencil in his hand, the way he just waved it through. And gosh, I saw somebody posted an old video. I don't know when he must have been 19 years old or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was like getting ready to go to spring training or something.
Yeah.
Hey, he's just a little guy. He's just a little kid. And, you see athletes today and they're so massive,
Mm-hmm.
They're so huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's 6 foot, 180 pounds.
Yeah.
Like there's 12-year-olds that are that size right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did with a bat, and obviously the longevity of his career, he played for 20 something seasons, 22 seasons.
Yeah. And this is before we knew anything about science, body science, weightlifting, stretching, flexibility. Yeah. I mean, just 22 years.
Right. 22 years. Maybe that's why he had that longevity.
Yeah.
Maybe he just ate right and, kept himself in good shape, but, didn't beat up his body. He didn't put extra stress on his body. And obviously he didn't need to, with the 755 home runs.
Yeah. What I was going to say, so is he, well, two things. I want to talk about his swing, because I always thought his swing was just, it was beautiful. It's what Ted would have loved, that swing. Is he the home run king, or is Bonds the home run king? I have to ask. I had to. Yeah. I couldn't avoid it. It's a tough one.
You don't
have to answer.
I'm more in the Hank Aaron boat, I guess. I would say I think of Hank Aaron as the home run king.
Okay.
More than I don't think of Bonds. Does it mean that Bonds should be he probably should be the home run king? He hit more home runs than anyone else.
Right.
I mean, steroids really weren't illegal for a long time.
Right.
Like, but was it frowned upon? Yes. So I would probably be more in the Hank Aaron camp. And I'm trying to remember when Hank Aaron hit. I guess it was the same. I'm thinking of Maris when Maris hit 61.
Mm-hmm.
Was the season like longer?
It was shorter.
It was shorter.
A little bit shorter.
So it was like 170 something before. 177. Okay. So he hit 61 home runs when Ruth hit 60.
It was less than 162 games. When Maris hit his 61st.
Okay. I thought there was like some kind of controversy there.
Well, if anybody knows, they can email us at jimbopodcast21 at gmail. gmail.com.
Right.
You know, the one thing with Hank Aaron, I'll say this, I'm starting to see players retire, like a Jeter, for example, a few years ago. Well, now it's 6 years ago. But players like that, when they retire or even, unfortunately pass away, like a Hank Aaron, you start to really feel it within yourself a little bit, because you grow up watching these people and you start to realize that, and you don't know it, but life is going fast around you and you're getting older and older. And I think, you kind of feel that too with players you watch growing up retire, or the retiring, or when they did retire. And it just makes you think that those 20 years of some of the greats,
Yeah.
right? Those 20 years that those players play, those 20 years for you personally go really, really quick. And then you see, Hank Aaron pass away, and you say, oh my God, I remember. Some older gentlemen and women will say, oh my God, I remember it like it was yesterday watching him play and hit that home run.
Right. Well, it's kind of like Michael Jordan for me. Like
Right.
I remember or Magic, or Larry Bird. Like that's when I was watching basketball so much, and they're old, they're getting old. Kareem.
Yeah.
And all
Well, you
those
say
guys.
old. Well, let me just say this though. You say old. You're considered, to me, you're still considered young because you're based off your age. But there's a different timeline. I've always said this to people, and this is something I've tried to navigate in my head, is that I always feel older than what I really am, because I'd be considered on the wrong side of 29 or 30, if you will, as an athlete. And for you as an athlete, you'd be considered, retired.
Right.
Tom Brady, when he's 43 years old, Tom Brady's not, that's not that old, by the way. I remember when Jeter retired, everybody was saying, well, he has his whole life in front of him. And I said, what? He's 40 years old. And I said, and then I realized he does have his whole life in front of him.
He's got 40 more years.
Exactly. Maybe
Productive
more
years.
Maybe more. So my whole point is that athletes, you look at it like, they're getting older and older. Right. Some guys are considered, well, he's old. Like LeMahieu, the guy we're talking about today, signed that big contract. People are already saying, well, he's 31, 33 years old.
32.
That's in regular human life, that's not that old. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's not what sports is about, though.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're right. Exactly. But I'm saying, you just look at that time period, 20 to 40. And you look at that age and you say, well, that's the young period. And then if we hit 40, I guess I do. If you hit 40, then you're old as dirt. I don't think that's the case.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Anyway, so the scouting thing that I want to. So again, rest in peace, Hank Aaron, and thank you for all the.
And Don Sutton too passed away.
And Don Sutton too.
Two Hall of Famers.
I forgot to mention him as well. So, did your dad ever face him, by the way?
Sutton, he knew Sutton. Yeah. And I don't know from what, but I remember meeting him somewhere, and they spoke like they.
Okay.
I don't know where they crossed paths, but I don't remember meeting Hank Aaron. I feel and I've met like everyone, it seems like, because my dad used to play in that old timers game in Washington D.C., which had all the living legends. Like it was such a huge thing. And I feel like Hank Aaron had to be like Mays and Mantle and like all those guys I remember. Bob Feller, I had pictures with all these, but I feel like I don't have a picture with Hank Aaron anywhere, which is weird. Like I'm trying to figure out why. I know my dad was Mays. My dad was like the biggest Mays fan ever. Yeah. Growing up in New York and watching him, as a young man, he got to see him. So I always used to ask him, who's the best player you ever saw? Thinking it was always Mantle, and it was always Willie Mays.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I don't think he crossed paths enough with Hank Aaron for some reason.
Yeah. Oh God. Now I'm thinking it felt like just yesterday when Bonds hit his 755th home run and Hank Aaron came on the big screen at whatever it was called at the time in San Francisco. Oh, yeah. Feels like yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
It's sad.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Well, let's try to good start. Start the show here. Sad start this week.
Got a new president too.
Let me try to pick up the pick up the mood here of the show. I was doing some videos. I mentioned earlier, speaking of scouting, I want to get to that here. We don't have any time today for listener questions, unfortunately. We'll get back to them next week. So we apologize for that because we have a jam-packed show. But I do have kind of a question for you. So I guess that will pose as a listener question because I do also listen to our show. So I count as a listener. Statistically, I do count as a listener. I may not, figuratively, maybe not, but statistically I do. So I was doing some video study of an amateur prospect last week. Sal Frelick is his name, from Boston College. Good little player. I shouldn't say good little. Well, he's little stature, but he's a good player. I actually wrote a report up on him. I was just bored.
And why is that? You just picked him out of nowhere?
Oh, I know all the prospects, and I like watching film on all of them. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard his name.
Yeah. It's random. I know, kind of weird. I just pick any amateur prospect.
He's on lists.
I consider him. I could be wrong here, but I consider him the best outfielder out of everybody I've seen in the upcoming draft in 2021.
So you've seen his defense. I haven't seen any of his defense.
His defense is tremendous. He can play.
Is it?
He can play all three outfield positions. And he came to college as a shortstop. So a natural athlete already. I think he profiles more as a center fielder. But nonetheless, his body reminds me of Shane Victorino. His body, not his play. His body. I forget who I comped him to. I can't remember now. But I noticed he hit a home run. This was a couple of years ago when he was a freshman at Boston College against Florida State. He hit a home run on a pitch that was up, with his front shoulder being up in his load. And I mean, I think it's glossed over. So let's go over that front shoulder being squared or pointed slightly up. And it's oftentimes glossed over, that front shoulder, where it is in the load. And it was up rather than being down. Now, how does that affect his power going forward? Because again, he's going to be a junior this year. He's entering the draft. He's going to be a junior. How would that affect his power? Because he doesn't have much power. He doesn't profile, in my opinion, to have much power at the next level. Is he hampering himself by his shoulder position, or am I just being nitpicky?
No, that would be one area where he would definitely, there's a power loss in that. So he's a very flat swinger for a left-handed hitter. Assuming that I've seen his swing before. But he would be one of the few left-handed high ball hitters. So it's funny you said he's a high ball hitter. Or he hit a home run on a high pitch with his front shoulder up. So yes, that front shoulder being up does two things. It's usually tough to keep the front shoulder up and closed. Most of the time, the front shoulder is up and open. And by up, if you're looking from the side, the front shoulder is higher than the back shoulder, essentially. So when that's the case, when it's up, the upper torso is usually not closed, and that will limit your torque. So that's going to limit the separation of your hips and your hands. Additionally, that move will make adjustability sometimes a little bit tougher. So if you're a little bit early on a pitch, you won't be able to keep your hands back quite as much, because when your front shoulder is down and in, it'll keep your hands back. So yes, there's definitely that is a movement, and him being not a natural left-handed hitter could be a cause of that, because he's a natural left-handed hitter, but he's a right-handed thrower. He's a right-handed athlete that hits left-handed. So, that's not uncommon for players that I see that are right-handed hitting and or right-hand throwing and left-hand hitting. And I don't know if it's just when you play catch, I don't know how many times I played catch with my daughter the past week. The weather was pretty good in Denver when I was back there. So every single day we were out, playing catch, because it wasn't 25 degrees. And, every one, I'm like, hey, get your shoulder closed, square off your shoulder, because her front shoulder likes to open. And you do that enough times when you throw to create power, then all of a sudden when you hit, you'll kind of have that same move.
Well, he also hit a home run that was a pitch, I think a slider that was down and in as well. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the aluminum part of the bat. Good swing.
No, I personally,
I was gonna say, I think he has you mentioned a flat swing plane. You're exactly right. He has, I think it's his swing plane that is the most consistent part of his swing. That's what I saw.
Yeah, it would be more of a doubles, doubles swing, singles and doubles kind of swing plane, which matches his body type and his speed.
Yeah.
And him being a defensive player and not being 215 pounds, 220 pounds. Like, I don't think, could you give him more power? Maybe. Do you want to risk giving him more power, or just know what his role is?
Right.
He might be a guy you just kind of figure out the role and then see what happens from there. But we'll see. If I remember his stats, he had I don't know if he had a really good freshman year.
Well, I'm glad you know who I'm talking about, because a lot of people I don't really know,
they don't
who I'm talking about. They know the top 10, but they don't know him. And I think he's going to be a steal for somebody.
Yeah, he could be. And, it's, he's a smaller college, right? He's
Yeah.
a Northeast college guy. He's not going to get a ton of publicity. He doesn't hit 20 home runs.
Yeah.
It's a handful of home runs guy. He's a tools player.
Yeah.
It's just he blossomed later. A lot of those tools guys come out when they're 18. They sign in high school. They're fast. They find barrels and stuff like that. He may have been a little bit a later bloomer and ended up going to a smaller school, and now all of a sudden he's coming into his own.
Well, he's playing against the best competition. Well, some of the best in the ACC as well, too. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I didn't think Boston College was in a conference. So no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you're right.
Independent
they do. They play good. They play pretty darn good baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, he is very toolsy. I'll say that. I'm going to follow him. I want to see how he's one of the players I definitely want to follow when he gets to the next level, and when he gets drafted. I would love to see another scouting report on him though, and see what other people are saying within the industry about him. Another thing though, speaking of scouting reports, so I had a fun Twitter exchange with Jeff Fry earlier this week. He posted a scouting report of Derek Jeter, and the hit grade. I think you saw that, and the hit grade they gave Derek in high school. I don't know if you can believe this. I mean, my God, it was a 20, and they projected his hit tool to be a 40 in the future. And Jeff and I were joking about projectability, and it was a pretty cool exchange. But I think that scout certainly got that wrong.
Yeah.
So let me pull up the grade. I think I still have the tweet here. I want to pull up the grades for Jeter. The 20, I couldn't believe they projected him to be a 20.
I mean, that's as low as
20 hit tool. I mean, right. That's as low as it gets.
It's the worst number you can get.
Okay. I pulled it up here. And it's kind of grainy. It's tough to kind of see. So again, they put it hitting ability. That's what it was called back then, I guess. Which wasn't too long ago. I don't want to name the scout.
Right.
20. The scout got it right. This was written May 8th, 1992. The hitting ability, 20, future 40, power 20, future 40, running speed, both 60, base running 50, future 60, arm strength 60, future 70. I don't know if I agreed with that either. Did Jeter have a 70 arm at his peak?
I don't know. That seems a little, yeah.
The accuracy 60-60. I would have flipped that. I would have actually flipped that. The accuracy would be 70. 70 is a tough grade to give. You're really starting to enter.
When was this?
Yeah.
When was this?
This was written.
Does it have a date?
May 5th. Excuse me, May 8th, 1992.
Okay.
Yeah. His fielding 50, and then future 60, range 50-60, instinct 50-60. Probably would have given that 70 future. Aggressiveness 50-50. I would have given that 50 or 60-70. Okay.
But we weren't there either.
Right. So
you know what I mean? We don't know what he was like. And that's such the hard part about scouting and player development is you number one, you don't know that it's a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And then at least I think he was. Did he go to Michigan or
no? He did not.
He signed out of high school, right?
He was signed to go to Michigan, but he signed out of high school. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's so hard. You can look back and say, well, that. Maybe he didn't find very many barrels. Maybe he did. Maybe he got better. Maybe he was such a hard worker. Maybe his footwork made his arm better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a crapshoot.
Right.
I mean, it really is when you take that kind of ability and you look at it, because there's so many intangibles. Now, for me, some of that's really easy. Running, fielding, throwing. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're in control of all of those. Base running, you're in control of all of those.
Yeah.
But hitting, like I can look at mechanics and be like, okay, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they have a degenerate eye disorder. Yeah. I don't know if they have bad depth perception. Yeah. I don't know if it creates stress when they stand in the batter's box. I don't know if they try to.
Well, that could be makeup too. That part could be makeup, and that's factored in as well.
Yeah. It's just hitting a darn ball.
Yeah.
There are so many factors. Now I know if there's issues in the swing. Mm-hmm. Okay, that issue right there. If that doesn't get fixed, there's no chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see a lot of those on draft boards, whether they're American players or Latin players, where, oh my God, that needs a ton of work.
Yeah.
But sometimes those guys still get signed
Right.
because they are special athletes and they do other things that, maybe I don't see. So it's a fun game. I think it's cool that you do that on your own, just because you're going to be a general manager one day.
We all have our peaks in life. I don't know if that's my peak. So I don't know if that's my my ceiling.
As long as it's not a plateau.
Yeah.
Don't plateau.
But the one thing that wasn't factored into, well, maybe it was. I shouldn't say that. I apologize. I think it was factored in. When you watch Jeter, you've probably watched him on film when he was in high school. When you watched him, though, and this is something I took away from it. He didn't have the greatest body control. And that's something that I was mentioning Sal Frelick. We were talking about him moments ago. That kid has some tremendous body control. Right. I mean, tremendous. Jeter didn't have the greatest body control. And that's a lot of high school kids, by the way. He didn't have the best body control. So maybe that factored into some of the grades in regards to his arm strength, the accuracy, the fielding, the footwork. That all could have factored into that part of the report as well, telling the player development department he needs to learn body control, and he may be able to shatter those numbers that I put down on the report. I don't know that, but that could be a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I watch his high school video, and I compare it to some of the international players that are a year or two younger than him.
Yeah.
That just signed for millions of dollars.
Right.
And they blow him out of the water. It's not even close. Doesn't even look like the same person. Right. So, I don't think Jeter was, he's a cold weather guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he jumped off the page from anything I saw, like some of these guys do nowadays that have been working on footwork. Jeter was just natural. Yeah. And then he got into pro ball and he developed so much. Where so many of these young guys now are trying to develop when they're 12 and 13 years old on footwork and how to get around balls and how to throw harder and how to hit. I think it's a different game.
Yeah,
for sure. I'm watching it right now. It's called Derek Jeter. It's from September. It's from about that same day, May 12th or something. But the video was posted on September 13th. I mean, there is nothing watching him field ground balls that would make me say this guy's going to be a professional baseball player. Nothing at all.
Yeah. Yes. Or at least average, or at least an average major leaguer.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like an average high school shortstop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, he's just doing in and out. He's just, take it. It's not his game video. Maybe all of a sudden the game comes on and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
But you watch him, he's kind of tall, he's lanky. You're right. He's like an unfolding lawn chair a little bit.
It's not pretty, right?
It's not the Jeter we know that showed up 3 or 4 years later. That's amazing to me. I don't think I've ever watched this video. I urge you all to do that.
So really, that scout probably got more of it right than he did wrong. Because I mean, the video that you're saying Jeter doesn't look good on video. I agree. He looks awkward.
Right. There's nothing that would say 60, like much more than 60 on there for anything. But again, this is just in and out. I haven't. I'm sure there's more videos.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The one thing I want to ask you now, with the scouting part, how do you measure when you're scouting a hitter? And again, the scouting community, it's changed over the years, and at times it can be very arbitrary, eyes of the beholder, if you will, right?
Yeah, sure.
So from a hitting perspective, and talking in the scenario of when you do your hitting analysis, how do you project a hitter and give them a proper future grade based off that projection?
I compare moves, and I'll compare moves just with experience. And of all
compare
the
moves to who? Major leaguers or other prospects? Okay.
Yeah, no, it would be major leaguers, right? I mean, that's where we want to say it. And do these moves play at the next level? So if somebody does something with their hand, does that move play? So I know that if the hand moves this way, the barrel is going to do that. And if the barrel does that, then there's a possibility they're going to flip at contact, and or their attack angle is going to be too steep at contact, whatever it might be. So I'm saying, okay, I've seen that move. Have I seen it with Raul Mondesi? Like, had kind of a weird move with his hand. Or do I see it with LeMahieu, who we're going to look at today? If I've never seen it, like it ain't going to play at that level. Like they're going to have to change that, or moves that, like bat drag. If a player has bat drag and they're not, really, really strong. So if they have bat drag and their barrel doesn't get on plane, now all of a sudden I know that they're going to need a lot of work. So could I project them? Unfortunately, in my experience, I would just say you probably don't take them. Like that's not a prospect to me. If you have a player development specialist that will dedicate time to them, then maybe it's worth it. It's worth paying them and doing it. Otherwise, it's like, we'll find somebody else that can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to figure out. Like, oh, but this guy picks it like no other.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if he can do that, then, maybe this will happen and maybe he'll get better and you take a flyer.
Right.
But, I like at players like there's Orlando Arcia for the Brewers. That guy's such a fun shortstop to watch play. And I actually watch his swing and his mechanics, and they're pretty good. Why doesn't he hit?
Yeah.
Why hasn't he hit in the last 5? He's not a hitter.
Right.
But his swing moves are pretty good. Like he's a big leaguer. He's going to hit 230. He's going to hit 10 home runs. But why isn't he better than that when his swing isn't that bad?
Serviceable shortstop.
Correct. You have a guy that maybe his brain doesn't anticipate pitches correctly. Maybe the moments get a little big for him and he gets a little bit tense. Maybe he's too jumpy. Maybe he doesn't see as well. So there's all kinds of things that can build into that.
Yeah. And his makeup too, I guess. Maybe he takes more, it's going to sound really just childish, but maybe he takes more pride in his defensive fielding. He knows he's a star defensively. Yeah. So he says, that's what I'm going to bank my contract on. That's you look at, you mentioned
catchers have done that for years.
And you mentioned DJ. Exactly. And you mentioned DJ LeMahieu. Do we know him as a defensive player? Do we know him, or have we known him throughout his career as an offensive guy? He's getting paid to hit. He's not getting, he's versatile, but he's not getting paid to, be a star second baseman or play third. I mean, he's getting paid to hit.
He is good. When he was, I haven't seen him as much, but when he was the Rockies, dude, that guy made he's 6'4", playing second base. Yeah. He made so many diving plays over there, like, with Helton playing first base. Like Helton wouldn't get to it. Yeah. LeMahieu bail him out in short right field and slide and throw him out.
There are times where DJ LeMahieu could be considered the best athlete on the field at any given time. Right next to the shortstop. He can't play shortstop. He doesn't have the footwork, doesn't have the range, but he can overall athletically can be considered one of the best athletes on the field at that time, at any given time.
And I'm sure that's why he went to LSU.
Yeah.
From the state of California, right? LSU said, this guy might be good. Do you want to come to Louisiana State University? Yes, sir. Okay, there you go. So it's not like it's not like nobody ever knew who DJ LeMahieu was. He was, if there were perfect game reports back then, I'm sure he would have been listed towards the top.
Yeah. Jeff Fry, by the way, does not like he does not like perfect game reports. Yeah. Right. He doesn't like any amateur scouting reports, Jeff Fry. I was just about to do the Coach O hold the tiger line in his voice, but I don't feel like giving myself douche chills on a Monday morning.
Okay.
So I'll hold that for some other time.
Good.
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, by the way, for new episodes every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. The show is available on Apple, Google, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and the app, and Pandora, and our YouTube page up and running, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast for archived episodes and clips. And you should be sure to follow us, too, on social media at Jim Tara and at Epstein Hitting on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can go back in the archives and watch our previous hitting analysis. We're doing one today, but you can go back and watch our previous analysis and link it up with the Epstein Hitting Facebook page also. Really quick, though, before we get to the analysis here, what do we have going on at the lab this week? You're back in Texas, and you've got a bunch of cool stuff going on at the lab, BCS, in College Station, Texas.
In College Station, today was busy. I landed last night and got after it today. We had I had a bunch of lessons, players I haven't seen for a little while, and Matt had a bunch of lessons. People running around all over the place, pitching, everything. So we, our classes, our membership's close to capacity. So this is a very good thing that it took us a year, and people people have definitely bonded to a good environment and good instruction and good people, and through a tough year. So we're very fortunate down here that, you know, we have continued to grow in times when other businesses haven't been able to, but it also is forcing us to have a wait list to come in and train, because we're not in the business of, you know, putting 2 and 3 deep at every training station that we have. You know, we're very proud of the model we built. So what do we have? We have full classes all week long. We have some rain coming into Texas. So what does that mean? That means all the high schools want to come in and train during the day. So we have to try to figure that out. But yeah, no, it's just a kind of a great standard training week with all of our age groups here at the lab.
Very good. So for more information, log on to the labbcs.com and sign up today. And of course, you can get on the email list as well. I've gotten on the email list.
Yes.
I always get the weekly email blasts, which are very informative too. So
yeah,
again,
we are starting Sandlot. We're starting Sandlot again. We took about a month and a half off. The Sandlot games will start Friday, and those are a ton of fun.
So again, for more information or to sign up if you're in the area, log on to the labbcs.com. Episode 39 of the fastest growing hitting podcast on the market, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, episode 39, Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 8. And today we are breaking down DJ LeMahieu, just signed a 6-year, $90 million extension last week with the Yankees. And financial burden aside, across baseball, right? What pandemic. But this contract is exciting because he's not a Lindor, Springer. I mean, the list goes on and on. But he brings something different, and to sign that name on the dotted line for a guy who's not really considered a star, or at least wasn't considered too much of a star, going back to his time with the Rockies, this is a great thing for him, and it's certainly well deserved.
Yeah. So to me, I would say DJ LeMahieu is way more important than most players to a team. I think he really solidified that Yankee team. Most people don't know who he is because he played in Colorado, and nobody watches the Rockies. Nobody, ESPN isn't going to put a Rockies game on, you know, just like they don't really put on Diamondbacks games or Brewer games, right. Or Twins games, you know, for that matter. So, so people don't see him, but he was an all-star in Colorado. He won a batting title in Colorado. You know, he hit 348, you know, he hit 310, he hit 330, he's hit 330 twice, he hit 364 last year in somewhat of a shortened season, you know, but he still had 200 at bats last year. So, you know, he is a guy that's now he has started to hit, you know, more home runs, right? Now he's starting to hit, you know, double digits and more home runs. So I've seen him since he started. Like I've seen him since he came up, you know, with the Rockies, and he's a quiet guy, right? He's not super flashy, but the dude hits. Yeah. And if I'm going to teach a kid, I know he's 6'4", I believe, something like that. But if I'm going to teach a kid how to hit, I'm going to use most of the components of LeMahieu's swing. So I'm really excited for this analysis because I haven't done a public analysis on him. I do it a lot for my players that are on the Epstein Online Academy or even my lessons here. I'll use him as a comparison. So this is going to be pretty cool. Excuse me.
Yeah, and he's never been considered in the elite class until he joined the Yankees, as I mentioned. You know, 2 years ago, I loved him when he was a free agent, and I circled a few teams that could have used him, and the small investment the Yankees obviously paid off, certainly. But why is DJ, and you mentioned that because he was in Colorado, but people knew Todd Helton, people knew Troy Tulowitzki as a household name throughout Major League Baseball. So why has he been sort of a forgotten player throughout his career, in your opinion?
Well, he doesn't hit 30 home runs.
Okay.
You know, or 40 home runs for that matter. You know, Tulo hit a bunch of home runs. Helton, you know, hit a lot of home runs in his heyday. LeMahieu really didn't. You know, he was a high average guy. Right. He used the whole field.
That's not fun, being the high average guy.
It's not fun in today's age. You know, I'm looking at his home run totals. His first, you know, I mean, he hit 2 home runs and 230 at bats his first, you know, that was about a half a season. And then the next year he hit 2 more home runs. Then he finally hit 5 home runs. 6 home runs, 11, 8, 15. And then boom, he hits more home runs in New York than he does in Colorado.
Right.
Well, everybody's like, oh my gosh, Colorado is a bandbox. It's so small. And then Colorado's huge.
Yeah.
You can hit for a high average there because the gaps are huge, but it's not small. You go to Yankee Stadium, it's like 165 feet to right center where everybody hits their little home runs.
It's a little league distance.
It's very small to
200 feet.
right center field. And LeMahieu is a right center field machine. So it's a perfect setup for him to hit 20 home runs. But yeah, he's not flashy. He didn't hit a lot of home runs. You know, he is a big guy. And so for a big guy not to hit, 20 home runs in today's age is not exciting. But I'm pretty sure he won a Gold Glove. Did he win a Gold Glove?
Well, so I was going over his resume, so to speak, and his numbers on Baseball Reference, doing the prep for the show this week. I didn't even look at his home run total in any year because I knew he's just not a power guy. I always looked at the average, the on-base percentage, and the slugging as well, and the amount of doubles that he hit. So let me go over a little bit of his resume here. He plays college ball at LSU, called the Tiger. Second rounder by the Cubs, 3-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger, and batting champion. He was a 2-time batting champion. People forget that too. And you mentioned Gold Glove. He was a 3-time Gold Glover as well.
Okay.
That's an excellent resume to me.
Yeah, right.
Now you circle back to 2015. He was an All-Star that year. This is what I found. It kind of blew my mind a little bit. He hit 301. Drove in 61. That's another thing too, by the way. The RBI total has never been very, very large. With an on-base percentage of 358. That was in 2015. The next year, he led the league in hitting at 348, on-base 416, slugging 495, OPS 911. Those were career highs at the time. And he wasn't an all-star that year, 2016. How do you figure that?
Somebody better.
I guess.
He
led the league in hitting.
Maybe Baez came in that year. Did Baez have a big year? What are you talking about? 16?
2016.
Yeah. Who was the all-star second baseman?
Not even to be named to the team. Injustice.
Maybe he got hot late.
I mean, you hit 348. You're hitting throughout the year. Good point. What are what kind of slump do you have to go through? What are the length of slumps you have to go through to still be able to hit 348 above? Like what? Like you can't go 1 for 30. You have to go.
You can't go like 1 for 30.
You might 10 have at the most.
Yeah, you might have a 1 for 20.
Okay.
2 for 30.
Yeah,
that's about it.
2 for 30. Oh wow, once. That can only happen once throughout the season.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you got to. You can't even. You got to minimize it like no other. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into the video analysis here. Are you ready to do the video analysis? I don't have it on the Google Drive, by the way. So if you'd like to put it in the Google Drive, I can stall for you because I am the pro at stalling and bullshitting. Or you can just turn the.
You are?
I am, as you probably know.
You know what I could do? We could talk. Let's talk about his childhood. Do you have anything about his childhood you can talk about?
I do not have anything about.
Did he play any other sports?
Probably, I would say basketball. I think he probably played basketball. There's a website, by the way. It's called, I think it's athletesbiographies.com. I encourage everybody to go take a look at it. And they have all athletes' biographies. I don't know how accurate they are, but I used to read that when I was a kid. And this was, years ago. Yeah. But there was one, Delwin Young. You remember Delwin Young? Delman Young. He former outfielder. He's on that. He was in that jumble of names. And I once heard with Delman Young that he had a weak arm in high school and he worked on it until he got really good at getting his arm stronger. And I'm sure DJ LeMahieu is probably on that website somewhere. Now, I don't have time to look at it right now. We don't really, but I encourage everybody to go ahead and do it. And there's a bunch of the NBA players, NHL guys, NFL guys. So there you go.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So I texted you the video.
I have it right in front of me right now.
Okay. And I had to put this on speaker, so it might sound a little different on your end. But I want your commentary to get picked up on the video as well. So I'm going to get after.
Sounds good.
DJ LeMahieu right here. Okay. So DJ LeMahieu for the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. And like I mentioned earlier on the show, if I were going to create a swing pattern for the majority of youth athletes, he would be the role model. Okay. He's a high average, high barrel, high contact guy. And if you set these kind of foundations, then you can make little adjustments if you want to hit the ball higher and further as you get older. And listen, I love Jeff Fry and what he's, doing with, hey, how about we just let players play and like figure things out and not have to showcase everything and not, the stuff that people teach on Twitter is ridiculous. Okay. So, maybe it doesn't mean that it's wrong, but it's really crazy and I don't even understand it. And that's what I do for a living. Right. And so, what he's saying is, just hit a ball back through the middle off the tee, and figure out your own swing and swing harder and swing less and work high and work low. And so if I was going to teach somebody how to swing, LeMahieu would be a very good model for everyone. He does everything very, very well. And there's no extremes, right? He's not an extreme up guy. He's not an extreme down guy. He doesn't lean forward, doesn't lean back too much. He finds a lot of barrels. And I think if we get kids to find a lot of barrels at a young age, they're going to play longer. And if they play longer, they're going to enjoy it. And if they enjoy it, then they're going to practice more and they're going to get bigger and stronger and develop their swing. And then that's kind of what, the reason I got into hitting was the enjoyment I got when somebody would smile when they would do something right. A 10-year-old kid would be like, oh my gosh, that felt so good. That's it. And then I would get an email, 3 days later, hey, Johnny got his first couple hits the other day.
Yeah, your dad used to say it feels like the shackles are coming off, right?
Yeah, and it's like, that's why you do it. That's why you're a teacher. That's why I don't care if it's mathematics or chemistry or, when somebody has that aha moment and they produce, maybe they're not a great student and you work with this student on chemistry or biology or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they get it. And that it's not their strength. They're not a gifted scientist. But what you did and all the hard work you put in works for them. That's why we teach. So LeMahieu's the guy that we're going to use. So breaking this down, as I digress there, I want you to watch just the first few clips, the first few images here as we go through. He's loading into his leg. So one of the things I tell players all the time is we have to stay stable in this right leg. Now, if you listen to, all the people on the internet, there's 4,562 big words you can say about trying to load around your back hip and your back knee and the foot and this and that and the other. Okay. The simple way is push your heel into the ground slightly. That's exactly what he's doing here. If you push your heel into the ground, the weight stabilizes into your rear glute and this foot will remain planted and your back hip will load. Okay. So don't get crazy and don't make that a huge move. This is his move. It's just, he just kind of sits into his back heel a couple inches. That's it. Then he's going to pick up his foot and he's going to stride forward. Now, remember, he's 6'4". He's probably got a 34-inch inseam. So we have to make sure we get wide. So as he strides through here, okay, we're watching him stride forward. He's got a good weight shift. You can see how stable his back foot is. And then when he gets to toe touch, you can see his front shoulder is down. Okay. The knob of the bat is facing back here behind his back foot. Okay. His chest is back. His back knee's starting to come in. And then when you get him to heel plant, this is his torque position. You can see his chest, his front shoulder is still down. His chest is back, but his hips are starting to open because this back knee came in. Back knee came in, front knee opened. Okay, and we're seeing this shin start to work down and in. But notice his elbows. This is why it's such a good position with players is the separation of his elbows when he goes to rotate from here to here stays the same. From there to there, those three frames. If you think about it, if you look at, this angle right in here between his wrists, that doesn't change when he turns the corner. Okay. That is where 95% of amateur problems happen. From heel plant to the short approach, which is right here, the arms start doing weird stuff. The barrel starts to dump and drop behind a player because they're trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do. I won't use the words because maybe it works for some people. But when this elbow slots faster than the knob moves, then you got real problems. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you have a player focus on that, like some players are taught, and again, I don't know exactly who this is, but I have lessons and they're like, yeah, they're trying to, they want me to throw the barrel back towards the catcher. Like that's the move. They're trying to throw the barrel back towards the catcher as fast as they can. Well, when you teach a player, now does the barrel go that way? It goes that way a little bit, but if you teach a player to do that, then what happens is they throw it by dragging this elbow underneath, and then that puts them under the pitch point. So that's a real problem. So again, notice this separation, so important. When I was coaching at Mizzou, when we would do hit and runs, like hey, we're doing hit and run rounds. This set of 5 swings, this is hit and runs. What's the one thing you don't want to do in hit and run? Hit the bottom of the ball. Okay. So what do people think? Oh, I got to chop down, right? I got to swing down to kind of hit the top of the ball. No, all we want to do is don't drop the barrel. Okay. So if the pitch is coming in this way, all we want to do is try to keep our barrel above that line as long as we can. So how did we do that? I would just tell players to keep your back armpit open. If you keep this open, the longer your back armpit stays open, the longer the barrel stays above your hands. Okay. So the quicker this elbow goes underneath, the quicker this barrel starts to drop back here. And I don't want my players to drop their barrel back there. That's just, I don't want the barrel to reach the bottom of the arc until roughly, right before the front knee. Okay. Yeah. If it bottoms out down in here, then it's going to have to go up a ton out in front. Okay. So with players, that's why, the old school major league guys, I shouldn't even say old school, current major league players that are going to be Hall of Famers, what do they try to do? They set the ball out in front of home plate and they try to hit a low line drive off the back of the cage off a tee. Yeah. And if you can't do that, you can't play at that level. And they're exactly right. Because the only way to do that is to come in flatter to be able to extend through that ball and hit it off the back of the tee. But if you drop down in here like this, and then you try to hit it off the back of the cage, it doesn't work. Okay. Because if you bottom out back here, what happens? You either stay flat and miss the ball by 4 inches, or you correct it and come up. And that's when you, once in a while, launch balls really far. And the other 85% of the time, you just barely get under it. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, not really talking about LeMahieu. What I want to do is I'm going to show you the point of this pitch to the catcher's mitt. Okay. When does he get on it? Okay. He gets on that plane probably here. Now the camera is behind the hitter here, the view. So this is actually out in front a little bit more. Okay. Everything's going to look more out in front. I guess that's the best way to say it. So he hits his ball here and it looks like it's 10 inches in front of his front foot. Yeah. It's probably more like 3 inches in front of his front foot. Okay. But again, if we go back, here's the point of the pitch. His meat of his barrel gets there. And then he stays on it, and then watch his extension through it. That's what saves him. That right arm staying through to get him to this pitch, because he probably was a little bit early. He probably would have rather. It's much easier to hit that pitch there in the air. Yeah. Okay. But the further out in front you go, the more your barrel's working up to your follow through. So if you don't have this good extension, it doesn't work. So what does he incorporate? Why is his swing so good? Number one, he gets low. Look at his back shin sink down into it. Okay. He has a weight shift. He steps forward. He gets the weight off of his back foot. Okay. There's no weight here. All the weight's here. Then after his body stops rotating, then the weight hits his back foot. Okay. So he has a weight. He has a load. He has a good weight shift. That's not crazy. He gets to a good torque position, meaning when his front foot lands and his knee starts to open and his hips start to open, his chest stays back. Okay. He doesn't have bat drag. When he rotates his hips, what's next? He rotates his upper body. He doesn't use his hands. There's no hand movement there. There's no wrist movement. He's simply turning his hands with his shoulders. Okay. So there's no bat drag. The knob stays in front of the back elbow. Okay. Then once we get here, his head doesn't move. Now his arms are going to kick in because his body's starting to decelerate. His body's still rotating, but it's not rotating as fast. Okay. It's starting to decelerate so his arms can come in. And then now he's going to use his arms once he gets his barrel in this contact zone here. Now he's going to use his arms and hands to try to get that barrel to extend all the way through to his power V position. So he gets to a great power V. Well, let's go back to contact. We get him back to contact. He was a little bit out in front and messed up and hit a home run here, but that's all right. We won't give it back. But you can see contact here. His right palm is up. His elbow is now out in front of his body. It's not pinned here. Okay. His back shin is very low. Yeah. I'm not sure it has to be any lower than that. Okay. But he's got long legs. His front leg is beginning to lock out. And then as we go into his power V position, he still hasn't rolled his wrist yet. Okay, notice how his left wrist and left forearm is still visible, and his right wrist is underneath, and then he finally rolls his right forearm over there. Okay, so one other thing that he does that's kind of funky is, he gets on his front heel here at the end of his swing, in his follow through, you can see his toes lift off the ground. Okay, that move there at contact where his toes just barely lift and he's pushing back through his front heel.
Yeah,
that's a good move, because when you push back through the front heel, it means the weight's on the back of the leg, hamstrings and glutes. Okay, and it means he's really, pushing back a lot. When you get this front leg on an angle like that, the toes are going to lift. So I don't recommend players trying to do that. I really only need to see this right there. So if we're staring at the front foot, I just want to see a little bit of toe lift right there, just a little bit, which tells me the weight's on the right foot and they're pushing back and bracing themselves, so they're not going to have a tendency to lunge as much. So again, that's about as much as the back foot. But you'll see players that get really wide like him and that angle's really sharp. Guys that sit down and push back a lot, you'll see that front toe come up a little bit more. But it's not, and it could be flexibility in his Achilles or his ankle. Maybe he has an old injury there. It could be something like that too. So don't necessarily try to do that, but if it does happen, it's okay. And then lastly, it's always good to have a Cal State Fullerton guy on the field. So you can see Phil Nevin down there.
There he is.
Third.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm a huge Yankee fan, is because there's 3 Fullerton guys on their coaching staff. So what does that mean? Fullerton guys with Fullerton degrees must be the smartest human beings that walk right behind LaSalle.
I agree.
Right behind LaSalle. No, I'm just
who was right behind Villanova.
Where you should have gone.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and close this evaluation here. You guys will be able to pick this up on Epstein Hitting YouTube account.
Yeah. I did get into Villanova, by the way. I did. Fun story.
Did you?
I did.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Long time ago. I made a lot of notes here, by the way, while you were talking. I was going through it as well. And I just want to touch on those notes. So you mentioned that he was a little bit early. Maybe the timing was slightly off, but he still ripped that pitch, whatever it was. I think it was a thigh high pitch. You'd agree with that, right? Based off where the catcher was, his position. I think whoever the catcher was, I think this was against the Astros.
I don't know. It looks like the pitch is a little bit away.
Low. I think the catcher was getting ready based off the minimal wrist movement to bring that pitch up to catch the bottom of the zone. So I'm thinking maybe it was like the pitch was thigh high. Yeah.
At the most. Yeah.
Right. So, okay. He's a little bit early here.
He's a little bit early. And
is that a test
from him?
Is that a testament though to his swing plane being as flawless as it and as perfect as it can be?
Yeah, I would say,
because it's adjustable.
Major leaguers could, if they needed to, they could do it. Like if you told them, "Hey, I'm going to throw this ball a little bit further outside. I want you to be able to still hit it out in front to right center. So even though you hit it to right center field, or the opposite field, I should say, I still want you to hit it out in front by your front foot or in front of your front foot." They could do that in a BP setting, but most guys can't do that in the game. I would say maybe 10% of major leaguers have the ability to do that. He is one of them. So what this means is his timing doesn't have to be perfect. So he has an extra 4 inches because he stays on plane, because his swing plane is so good. He has an extra 4 inches out in front. Well, how many big leaguers are, roll over a ball to the pull side because they can't stay on plane out in front for whatever reason? Their extension isn't as good. More likely they've dropped their barrel and they're swinging up too much. Their attack angle is too high. So by the time they get out in front, too far out in front, they've actually come over the top of the ball and top spun it to the full side. But how many guys, if you add 4 inches, do they get more than 15, or do they get 15, 20 hits more a season? Right. Probably a lot of them. And he's able to do that. He's able to tap into that based on him not dropping his barrel early and being able. Now, this also has to. So Luke Voit couldn't get to this pitch. Okay, they're teammates. Luke Voigt's not going to be able to get to that pitch. No chance. But what Luke Voit does is he creates more speed deep in the zone. Okay, so you have to match all of this up with what kind of hitter you are. Are you a guy that is early most of the time? Well, if you're early most of the time, you got to be like LeMahieu. But if you're early all the time, the worst thing you could possibly do as a hitter is try to get on plane deep in the zone, because in order to do that artificially, you got to drop your barrel early. And then if you drop your barrel early, you won't be able to hit the ball out in front.
Yeah.
So everybody sees the ball differently. Some guys are late guys, some guys are early guys. You have to try to match that, what your brain and what your eyes want to do, to maybe what kind of hitter you are.
I just stopped my video right. I did this by accident, by chance, right at his toe touch when he strides. And there's no wasted movement with him. There's no big leg kick, nothing. It's not pretty. It's not.
Yeah,
it's just very, very simple. But the shoulder pointed down perfectly, knob pointed towards the catcher's feet. If you still, people still go off that as a cue. Back elbow is in a perfect spot, maximizing the torque. But I'm looking at the 50-50 position at his toe touch. And then I go a step further. I'm going to do it here on my phone. I do a step further.
Well, if you go to toe touch, actually all the weight's still on his back foot.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I
guess right.
I'm a window. I think I was a window ahead of what you're talking about.
So if you go from toe touch, all the weight's on the back foot, or the majority. And then if you go to heel plant, when the knee rolls in.
I was going to bring that up. So with heel plant, his hips just click into a position with the front shoulder closed, creating that torque. And it's so pronounced and easy to see. The evidence is there, right? I'm again, my window is a little bit off from yours, so I'm probably behind. But I'm just going back and forth on when that heel drops.
Yeah.
And the hip and those hips start to open up. They just click into place. It's kind of a beautiful thing. It really is.
Well, it is. So I mean, I remember my dad did a video. Well, it was, I don't know, this may have been prior to 2000. It was like he used to do like presentations. And have to play a VHS tape, and it was all these major leaguers, and he would stop them. He would go from toe touch to heel plant. Mays and Mantle and Hank Aaron and all these guys, right?
That's right.
You would see, from toe touch, the hip would be closed, heel plant, it would be open. And he would just kind of space it out. And it's, that's a very, today I don't want to say that's overtaught, because can you overteach a move, a good move, but it's so overly stressed. It's so like broken. Like, look, if you're an athlete, and your front shoulders down, like everybody's front hip is going to open. Like they do. They don't think about it. Those Latin players that I see all the time, they don't think about. They don't do all these crazy drills. Like your front hip is going to open if you open your front foot and you like have a weight shift. The key is, can you keep your hands back and your front shoulder down? And that is where players have issues. Now, if by over teaching that front hip swivel and opening the hips and if that helps you keep your hands back and your shoulders back, then, I'm all for it. I just think that, with hitting today, there are so many good drills, but I feel like everybody's a drill person. Like we got to have 40 different drills to teach these things. And you got to have a bunch of different gizmos. And don't get me wrong, like I gave lessons today, and I used something called the stance doctor, right? So that a player would stride the right way. They would step far enough and they wouldn't step out. Like that's a gizmo. I use that, but I didn't put 4 balls underneath their arms and underneath their knee and stuff like that, because what happens is then that's a crutch. And as soon as you take that ball out of there, then they're looking for it.
Right.
And what
muscle memory.
Exactly. Sometimes that issue will get worse because they're pushing their arms to hold that ball in place. And then you take the ball away and then they push it too much and there's nothing there. So you have to be very careful with all the different gizmos and stuff that are out there, and making sure that they actually do work for real life and not just for, when you're going through your slow moves. But I'm a big fan of, going slow and feeling your body, but maybe not using all those gizmos, because I want them to actually feel all the parts of their body and their swing, in a real life situation. So be careful.
His the way DJ stays connected is
it's about as good as he gets. Right?
I hate to use the word perfect on anything, but
and
he also we've talked about this before on the show. He sinks into his legs really well. For being a 6'4" guy, he's not really upright at the point of contact. He really sinks well.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. It really, like, I try to get all my players to sink into the ground like that, because then you can use your ground to create energy. You're going to spring load. That's probably why his front toes come off, because he sinks so low and then he pushes back with that front leg so much. There's just a ton of energy, in doing so.
Okay, I got to the point earlier where you said earlier was his weight was on his back. I was like 2 frames ahead, but I got to the point earlier where you mentioned his weight is on his back leg, mostly on his back leg, a toe touch. I think I got to the right frame. Um, what kind of does that hamper him at all, having his weight positioned on his back leg there, or is he okay? I mean, I got it right at toe touch, right when his toe touches the ground.
It should absolutely be there. So I mean,
Okay.
when you look at ground force and ground force reaction plates, or even just simple I don't know what they would call it, mats, the golfers you can kind of use and see where the
Mhm.
weight goes in the mat.
Sure.
I can't
Yeah.
think of the name, but so we did ground force testing, and it's weird how it's not 100%, but when the player's striding, it's like 98 point something percent or 99 point something percent of the weight is on the back foot, and the
Mhm.
front foot's not even on the ground. The front foot's off the ground. So where the heck is the other weight? Like, where it's lost
Yeah.
in space somewhere, right? So, and then the quicker you transfer that weight into your front foot, so then when the front foot lands and you get to heel plant and you roll your back knee in and your foot in, the quicker you transfer 98, 99% of the weight from the back foot into 98% into the front foot, the
Right.
better your ground force will be.
Yeah.
Okay. So players that hold on and they don't transfer their weight, they don't get it, their back foot doesn't come off the ground high enough, or they
Mhm.
squish the bug and the foot has too much weight on it and they don't transfer. So instead of the front foot receiving 98%, they'd only receive 70%. That's going to be a huge loss of energy for a player. So there's nothing that he does wrong there with his feet. There
Mhm.
shouldn't be any weight on his back foot at point of contact.
Mhm.
Okay, that's why that shoe you can see is totally straight up. There's no bend in it, and the heel doesn't fall back yet. The heel falls back at the end. Um, but that's how you transfer your weight. And quite honestly, like if you look at Hank Aaron,
Mhm.
he transferred so much weight that he was pretty much always on his front foot the whole time.
Yeah.
Like he was a front foot kind of guy. He kind of leaned. I wouldn't say he pushed with his back leg, but his head and his upper body was constantly like forward. That was his natural move,
Mhm.
and I think he did okay with it. So not everybody needs to be the same, and maybe we have to be a little bit better in today's game because pitchers are better.
Mhm.
Um, pitchers, and they're fresher. We talked about this, right? They may not be better, but they're fresher.
Yeah.
You're facing their best stuff for 18 pitches, and then they're going to bring somebody else's
Yeah.
best 18 pitches in. You're not going to face the same guy 5 times and then see him 2 days later.
I could watch him swing all day. Oh my God. He's tremendous. Absolutely
Absolutely.
tremendous. Well, good stuff this week. These analyses are always fun to do. We'll announce our next analysis of who we will talk about next time. But gosh, his torque is tremendous. It really is.
And
The
it's
way he
it's not as
rotates, and oh my God, he
did we do a
rotates around the
Baez?
spine, and
Did we do a Baez one yet?
we have not done a
Yeah,
Baez
I mean,
yet.
if you want to see torque, that guy is incredible. Like
Yeah.
I check that one out, and maybe we'll mix him in with one of our analysis too.
Well, you bring up a good point though too with Baez. There's a guy who has a lot of moving parts. It's the
Yeah,
leg kick, everything's really pretty,
yeah,
so to speak. With DJ LeMahieu, not that it's not pretty.
right,
With DJ, it's simple. It's just very simple. They're on the opposite ends of the spectrum with that, I think.
right, yeah,
They have the same
and
moves though that makes them successful.
similar moves. Yeah, the
Right.
LeMahieu's are more dependable or more consistent, I would
Right.
say,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of his timing mechanism, and he actually keeps the barrel up. He keeps his elbows a little bit quieter
Mm-hmm.
than Baez when he rotates,
Mm-hmm.
and his swing plane is a little flatter. Baez comes up, quite a bit more than he does.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't have the. I should have looked these numbers up. I wonder what the attack angle would be. Oh, I don't think I'd be able to see
Yeah.
that. But what the attack angle would be for LeMahieu, as compared to Baez, what the launch angle would be. But then again, that's also could be arbitrary based on the pitch too. So I guess
Yep.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that go into launch ankle. And
Right.
I was
Right.
working on a player with that today. She needs to increase. She hits the ball so hard. This girl, she's not very old. She's not even in high school yet.
Mm-hmm.
She hits the ball as hard as some of the college girls, but she hits the ball like 10 degrees, which is great. Like there's nothing. 10 degrees. She'll hit 900 if everything is 10 degrees off the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, with her power, she could actually hit home runs very easily at her age. But so what she's tried to do is she's tried to just swing up more. okay, I'm just going to get my attack angle up more.
Yeah.
And so what she did, I looked at her blast. She has her own blast, and she brought her stats in today. And when she started, hitting, it was like, -1, attack angle, 0, 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like 14, 15, 16, but the results aren't any different. She's still hitting the ball low.
Yeah.
And so I told her, look, it's not about, if you start swinging up more, that's not the fix for this. And that's what everybody thinks when they talk about launch angle. Oh, we have to increase our launch angle. Well, some people do. Like this girl needs to. But it's not as much as, dropping the barrel and swinging up more. That's not how we do it. So we worked all day today about repositioning her body and actually keeping her attack angle where it is. And all of a sudden it started to work. So be cautious out there. Launch angle is a very, very dirty word that's out there. Like increase your launch angle or launch angle swings. Like that's like, I don't even know what that is. Like a launch angle swing. Like you're trying to, everything has a launch angle. It just might be negative.
Yeah.
But it's not just about hitting the ball in the air. It's about keeping the ball between certain degrees, which for me, 10 to 25, 10 to 28 for most of my amateur players. They shouldn't be hitting balls higher than that in practice because it's not going to go anywhere. It might go somewhere when you have a big 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But as soon as that big 10-year-old is 13 and 14, they're all caught. So we're preparing for their future. And it's always good to find barrels and line drives. And as we get bigger and stronger and more athletic, then maybe we can get into our body more. Maybe we can increase our, attack angle a little bit more. But that's just playing with fire at young ages. And really you want to be consistent at a young age. And as you get bigger and stronger, that consistency will turn to more power by making some, small adjustments.
Well, good stuff this week. By the way, one more question I have for you. How many productive years will the Yankees get out of DJ LeMahieu of the lifespan of that 6-year contract?
4 years.
4 years. And the next 2 will be average? Or 2?
No, I think he'll be pretty good I think he'll be good enough for 4 years.
Okay.
I think he'll be 320.
Okay.
I think he'll play good defense, and I think he'll hit 20 to 30 home runs. I think he'll do that for 4 years.
All right. There's this Twitter account called Freezing Cold Takes. I hope they listen and note that, by the way.
What is freezing cold takes? What is that?
It's like, when people post things like, say,
gas prices or
gas prices.
Whatever.
Don't worry, gas prices will stay the same the next 4 years, and give it 6 months, and then But they usually just post about sports.
Okay, that's funny.
So, like, for example, Andy Reid will never win a Super Bowl, and they'll retweet the person who said that as a freezing cold take. So
yes, a freezing cold day. I get it. Yeah. No, I could be wrong, but probably not.
Okay.
No, and
line of the show right there.
What his contract turned out to be was like, look, I'll give LeMahieu a 4-year deal. Like, do you overpay him for 4 years, or do you give him a 6-year deal at current rate?
You weren't getting out of that money.
Right. It's how do you want to word it? Oh, he wants a 6-year deal. Okay, we'll spread it out over 6 years.
Yeah.
But they're going to get 4 good years out of him.
Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast for new episodes every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. The show, of course, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn Radio, and the app. Our YouTube page is up and running. It's the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. And go check out, if you want to listen to this and watch our video breakdown, the analysis, and have a visual cue, go to the Epstein Hitting Facebook page while you have the podcast up and running. Don't do it though.
YouTube. It'll be on Facebook, but
will it be on YouTube? I'm sorry.
It'll be on YouTube. Yeah, it'll be on YouTube.
Don't do it while you're driving though. So just listen while you're driving and then go back later if you're driving.
Absolutely.
Using the Apple CarPlay. And by the way, follow us on social media too, at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. Next week, part 1 of a 2-part series. We're talking about the types of hitters, and there are a lot of ways we can go with this, but we discuss the type of hitter that hits gap to gap. So someone like a Sal Frelick, we mentioned earlier in the show, like a DJ LeMahieu. We're talking that type of hitter, gap to gap, everything, all the elements that go into that, the mechanics, fundamentals, how to tell and be able to identify those types of hitters and what they may be in the future in terms of projection. We'll talk about all of that next week.
Very good. Looking forward to it. I'll make sure I steady up.
Yeah. You don't need to study up.
Gap to Gap for Dummies. I'm going online right now.
Yeah, it's on Google. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.